it'd been a fun few years at Momofuku, but it was hard and intense. And, after speaking to Frank and Justin, it just felt like a time for a change, really, a new challenge. You go from a 40-seat restaurant in a casino to running a 300-seat pub on Oxford Street. It's a big difference.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Change is one of the hardest things to accept and implement. We're always talking about change, the need for it, the impact of it, the desire for something better. But what impact does real change have? When you look at the way you live your life and turn it on its head. Ben Greeno is the executive chef of the Centennial and the Paddington Precinct. Ben, how are you going?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
I'm good, mate. It's great to have you on. You've been so influential since you've been here in Australia. But I first just wanted to talk about some decisions you made at the beginning of the year, personal decisions. And can you tell us about that time and about that?
Yeah. At the start of the year, I just decided that I'd stop drinking for a while, stop eating meat and fish, just to see what effect it had on me. And now it's been, 3.5 months, and it's been pretty good, I think.
Tell us about that decision to make that dramatic change. You said to see what impact it would have on you. Why did you make that decision to cut all of that out of your life?
Just to see, you read so many things and you watch so many documentaries about, go vegan and all this kind of stuff. And I just thought, I'll give it a go because I like a challenge. And I thought, I'll see what it'll do for me. And it's been great. I definitely feel a lot lighter, which is, it's a kind of a strange feeling. You don't feel like the meat is weighing you down. The drinking thing wasn't that much of an issue for me because I didn't really drink too much anyway. And I did a good stint a few years ago of no drinking. So that's been pretty easy.
What's it been like for you? You got a very busy role in the Merivale Group with 2 venues. Has it changed the way you perceive your job and the way that you run those kitchens?
It has changed the way I look at what I offer for vegetarians, and I won't accept somebody saying, if I say, what are we going to do for the vegetarian? They say, the pasta. I'm like, no, we're not. We're not doing the pasta or the risotto. That's just not happening anymore. So there's a lot more time and effort and thought going into the vegetarian offering.
I want to dive deeper into the world of vegan and vegetarian food shortly, but you came to Australia at the beginning of Momofuku Seiōbo and its opening, and you were the head chef. Take us back to that time and how you got that role and coming to Australia to do that. What was it like?
Yes, it's 10 years ago this year that I moved down here.
Wow.
Yes, it's going. Seems like it's gone pretty fast. At the time, I was living in London with my then girlfriend, now wife, kind of looking for a restaurant space over there, talking to various people about opening something. And then Chang was over doing a food festival down in Borough Market. And I'd met him a couple of years before out at Noma. And we kept in touch. And then we were just, he said, can you do a dish with me on stage? It'd be really good so people will see you, blah, blah, blah. And then, so we were backstage prepping these dishes, got talking. At the time, he had an Australian girlfriend. Obviously, Cara's Australian, my wife. And we were just chatting, and he's like, we're going to open a restaurant in Sydney. He said to me, do you want to be the chef there? And I said, not really. No, I had no interest in going to Australia. And then I spoke to my old boss, Sat, and he was like, you should take it. You're mad if you don't take it. So I emailed Dave, said I'm in. And then, that was it. 3 months later, I think 3-4 months later, we finally started working on this thing. Then it was go to New York and worked in New York, and then came down here like July 2011.
You were a bit of a mystery when you came to Australia to most of us, and you're not one to seek the limelight. You weren't sort of very eager to be in the press. What was that period of time like when there was so much focus on what was going to happen with the restaurant? Take us back to that time, that early stages in the lead up.
Well, the early stages they were all right actually, because there was no real expectation. Nobody knew what we were going to do, so we were just carrying on doing what we do. You know, I had lunch with John Fink and Peter Gilmore one day at Fink's house, and he's just probing me, going, you know, what are you going to do? It seems like you're going to open Co. Somebody said it's only 40 seats. It's going to be a Co. It's going to be a Co. I was like, mate, it's a casino. If it's 40 seats, we can fill it 4 or 5 times. And I just wouldn't let anything on. So it was really good. I mean, yeah, it was great. Having drinks with Darren Robertson on one of my first nights out here, and he's just like, oh, you're not like I was expecting. And I was like, well, what did you expect me to walk in with, like a cloak going, ta-da, here I am? Like, you know, it's just opening a restaurant. It's nothing life-changing really.
Well, the restaurant had a monumental impact, and as you know, it'll close later this year, and you were one of the main reasons behind its success. Tell us about your role in the kitchen and the sort of food you were doing there and the momentum that it got.
Oh, yeah, the momentum came quite quickly. We were just doing what we wanted to do. It wasn't pigeonholed into anything. There was a little mix of all sorts of stuff. Not in like a terrible fusion way, but it was just dishes that we wanted to eat. Between me and the 2 brilliant sous chefs, Clayton and Chase, we came up with pretty much everything. Serpico was there at the start. And yeah, it was fun times right at the beginning there. It was great.
You briefly mentioned a very influential British chef that you worked for, Sat Baines, and take us back to the early days and how influential he's been on your career. Oh,
massively. Like every decision I make professionally and a lot of personal decisions gets run through Sat. Like I check everything with him. I started working for him when I was 20 and did a couple of stints on and off. Every move that I made for the first 5-6 years, he put me in that position to make the move. Like he organized the move to Noma with Rene. When I came back to him, he then organized for me to go to France. Then I came back, and then he's back to Denmark again. And yeah, he's been a massive part of my life.
You mentioned that you started with him at 20. Well, what led to a career in the industry for you?
Just really simple. I didn't have any interest in like woodwork or computers or metal work, which is, you know, all the kind of stuff that we had to pick during our options at school. So I was kind of left with cooking and started cooking, then got the part-time job at a hotel after work experience there. And yeah, just loved it. You
mentioned the influence that Sat has had. Take us back to those early days. What was it like in the kitchens, and do you have any interesting stories to tell from those times?
I can't tell too many stories. But yeah, you know, when I started there was 3 of us. There was me, Sat, and a guy called Marcus Pepper. And I was on the garnish section. And, you know, I remember walking in on a morning and the garnish section was huge. Like the prep list was huge. And then I'd look at those 2 guys section and they'd have like 5 or 6 things on it, and mine would take up a whole side of A4. It was just in the shit from the moment I walked in. It was great. Like, you know, sometimes we do, you know, 30 covers, just 2 of us, you know, at this level that was at the time like pushing for a star, and it was nuts. I loved it.
Your time at Noma was when it really hit its straps and got recognition all over the globe. What was it like working in that kitchen?
So there was 2 stints at Noma. So there was the very first time I was there was right from opening. So from opening day, and did 6 months and then left and came back a few years later, around 2007, 2008, something like that. And that was pretty incredible. That was like relentless. Just, everything had to be the absolute best. There was no shortcuts. It was, it was really intense. And there was days walking in there where you're like, I just can't do another day. But it is funny because then at the end of the week, you're like, fuck, like, how good is that? And seeing all those people coming through that restaurant, loving it, and all these chefs from all over the world flying in to eat there at this restaurant in Copenhagen was just amazing.
He's got an amazing ability to sort of feature incredible ingredients that many of us may not have seen before. Were there some ingredients during your time there that you'd never used before and that you can tell us about that were highlighted on the menu?
Oh, yeah. I mean, at that time, I'd seen like Scottish langoustines, and I'd seen a lot of this kind of stuff, but then you'd get these boxes of langoustines flying in from, Iceland or the Faroe Islands late at night, and just the quality of them was incredible. Muskox coming from Greenland on big pallets, just amazing. Then there's just that whole world of, herbs and forage stuff that you'd never even really thought about. I'd never thought about it. And I know at SATS at the time, we'd never even contemplated it. Then it was like ringing up, getting a packet of chives and a packet of chervil. And then slowly over at Noma, you just see them, they're not ringing up buying herbs. They're going out and getting them from the forests. Yeah, so all that kind of stuff was pretty cool.
You've experienced Noma from some pretty incredible positions from inception to what it sort of became. Did you see the potential of Noma when you were there for the opening during your first stint?
No. And then I think if you go back and look at, some interviews over the past few years, I don't think anybody did. They knew that there was something there, but to the level that it is now, no way. It's a completely different restaurant, and even now it's completely different to the last time I was there. It's next level.
As you say, you've been in Australia for a decade now. When you first arrived, did it surprise you, the restaurant landscape, and how have you felt it evolve yourself?
I think it felt a little bit kind of stiff when we first came over. It felt like, everything was so prim and proper. Nobody was really relaxed in a restaurant. But now it's a lot lighter, a lot freer. More people just seem to be doing whatever they want and having more fun in restaurants these days.
You ended up leaving Momofuku to join Merivale Group to do the projects that you're doing now. Tell us about that period of time and the decision to leave. Was it a difficult one? It wasn't difficult. It'd been a fun few years at Momofuku, but it was hard and intense. And, after speaking to Frank and Justin, it just felt like a time for a change, really, a new challenge. You go from a 40-seat restaurant in a casino to running a 300-seat pub on Oxford Street. It's a big difference. Tell us about those early days. What was the challenges involved when you opened up the Paddington? It was a pretty influential gastropub as soon as it opened, and as you mentioned, 300-seater, it's huge. Tell us about that, the challenges that you had early on.
Oh, just not prepared for how busy it was. It was crazy. I've never seen anything like it. The first the first week was absolutely nuts. Like the first day we opened, I think around 4:30, 5 o'clock. But by 6, every single seat was taken and people were standing everywhere. And I haven't seen anything like it since, because I think we went so hard with the media and the PR and everything that everybody came. It was unbelievable. Yeah, it was a challenge. It was a challenge. I think at the time we had maybe 18 chefs. And I remember Frank coming to me about 8:30 on the first night. He's like, "Mate, you need more chefs." I'm like, yeah, I know. Thank you. Yeah, it was pretty fun.
But tell us about your concept with the food there, because you brought, the humble roast chook sort of and put it under the spotlight. What was the challenges involved on that scale of doing that?
Well, I love the rotisseries that you get. You get all over the streets in France, and it was a big reminder of holidays from when I was younger, and then the actually putting them into a restaurant. The challenge is it's just crazy. Like, it's hard because you want that perfect combination of, I want the skin to be this color brown and I don't want it to be overcooked. And when you have them in France, they're all knackered. Like they're never good. So the biggest challenge was getting the chicken just right, and it was hard. It was hard.
You ended up putting a takeaway window in as well and selling like lots of chooks. What sort of volume are we talking about? What sort of influence did it have on the area?
Yeah, well, the influence it had on the area has been pretty good. And then a year later or so, Fred's opened and Josh opened at the same time, and you can really feel a big change in Oxford Street, like these days compared to when we first opened Paddington. In terms of numbers, we saw, well over 500 chickens a week between our venues. So, yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Well, you're also looking after the Centennial at the moment. Tell us about the food offering there. It's a very different style pub to the Paddington, and the real heartbeat of that sort of community. Do you treat that differently, that venue?
Yeah, it's completely different to Paddington. Paddington is a pub. Centennial is a pub that is a restaurant. It's a restaurant. If you look at Centennial, really, the food is more based on the south of France. That's where we look to for our inspiration here. We use just different produce, like, for example, the summer lad chickens. We get more and more of our produce from Grant at Feather and Bone. So we have the summer lads on the menu here, which I don't think many people are using. All our pork comes from Grant as well. When he gets himself together and sorts his veal supply out, we'll definitely be getting the veal off him. But then we do other things, like we're going to start using the 2GR from Haverix, and we're going to do a whole braised Wagyu shin, which is going to be a pre-order thing for the winter months. Yeah, it's going to be pretty cool, but it's very different. The price point is different, and we share guests with other venues at like that similar price point. Like, so you see the same guests that come to Centennial, that go to Fred's, that go to wherever. Whereas the Paddington guests don't cross over so much with Centennial.
As you mentioned, that whole area has been rejuvenated with St. Peter, Fred's, Paddington, Centennial, which is just up the road a little bit. It's changed dramatically. What's your role these days, from the sort of 40-seater at Momofuku to what you're doing now? Can you give us some comparisons? How many chefs are you looking after, and what's the average day for you?
So I look after. So my job is exec chef and operations for all those venues. So I look after probably 170 staff, 180 staff within just my venues. And then obviously there's a bigger role that gets played as an exec chef role when we sit in our group of exec chefs with Jordan and Dan and Nathan and all those guys. It's a big influential role. My job is to make sure that we're doing everything that we can do to get the best for the guest, really. An average day, it varies. Tuesdays and Thursdays, I generally have a lot of meetings. Fridays and Saturdays, I split my time between Paddington or Centennial and spend the whole day in the kitchen on those 2 days, and then in and out on the other days.
the last year has been challenging for many in the industry. With your role over the two huge venues and so many staff to look after, what sort of impact did it have on your operations?
Well, it had a massive impact on the operations, but, we tried to look after the team as well as we could. We started back straight away doing those Merivale at home boxes. I was making thousands of chocolate mousse a week, which was, back breaking, but also so much fun. Like you look around the room and there's all the exec chefs from Merivale in there, like packing up these plastic boxes of foods to be packaged to send to people's houses. It was pretty cool. And then, when we could reopen for 10 people, we brought all our team back at Paddington and Fred's straight away to open the Paddington for 10 people plus for takeaway. And then we reopened for normal guests on 1x4 in July, as soon as we could open. So everybody got a couple of months off, and for some people it was really hard, but they're all back now, and everybody came back really refreshed and ready to go.
As someone that wasn't initially interested in coming to Australia, what's impressed you about Australian produce and working with it?
The fish and the shellfish really impressed me. I love the passion that people have for mud crabs and lobsters. It's very funny. That's what I kind of like. I really love it for that kind of stuff. The beef is amazing down here. Yeah, vegetables, they're getting better. I've definitely said in the past that they're not great, but they're getting better for sure. But I remember first getting here and just being like, oh my God, what is this? Carrots. Still to this day, you will go to Coles and get carrots that have no flavor whatsoever. But, if you know where to go, you can get some good carrots, that kind of thing. Georgie from Civ Produce does amazing work with her produce, what she sources. Apples and broccoli, amazing.
At the top of the show, we talked about change, and you've implemented some serious change in your life with no drinking and not eating fish or meat. Is this a long-term thing, or is this something that you sort of want to dive into and out for your life?
I haven't decided yet. We'll see how it goes. I was talking to my wife yesterday thinking, maybe I will have a drink on my birthday, just at the end of April. But then, I woke up today and I'm like, actually, you know what? That's just crazy. I don't need to do that. So I really don't know yet. We'll see. But I'm definitely going to give it another couple of months like this, I think.
The changes that you've had have been replicated on the menus of the two venues that you do. Can you give us an idea of the sort of vegetarian and vegan offerings that you now have because of this life sort of change?
So right now at Centennial, I have a pumpkin in the oven downstairs now, which has got red rice from the south of France in it, and then it's a layer of like a cep duxelle, then a layer of black truffle, then more rice. So that's a dish that I'm working on now for Centennial, which, if we can get it right, we'll just cut a big wedge out of it with that stuffing still on the side of it. I've got a few things that I'm working on now for Paddington. We have made a tofu out of chickpeas, so it's basically like a panisse that we're going to get on the menu as like a fried chickpea tofu burger kind of thing. Paddington's going to be an interesting one because we're actually going to go much heavier on the vegetables there and a few little mixes of things, and vegetables are going to kind of move to the center of the menu down there, which will be really interesting. Obviously we're still going to keep the chicken and the lamb and all that kind of stuff, but really focus on the vegetables in Paddington. See what that does.
What sparked this change? I know the change is within you, but for a venue that's big, and people don't think of vegetables when they go to a pub. Do you think there's a change in our perspective of the importance of eating lighter and eating vegetables? Is that driving it?
I think so. That's what I'm thinking. I think Frank was away somewhere the other day, and he went out for lunch with about 8 friends, and he said that 90% of the table was vegetables. It's definitely changed the way people eat now. So, if I can make that a forefront down at Paddington, let's see how it goes.
You've seen the challenges to change those on menus. What's it been like for the last 3 months eating at home and being creative with dishes and vegetables again? Has it opened up avenues for you, or has it been challenging?
Oh, it's been all right for me. My kids and wife are not that thrilled about it. My kids hate zucchini and eggplant. Like, they hate it, and every so often I'm just like, oh, zucchini and eggplant, brilliant. I'm eating so much zucchini and eggplant. They're like, no, I can't eat anymore. And my wife is kind of half got on board with it, but occasionally she's just like, I just want a steak, so I'll be cooking off a couple of steaks for those guys, and then so it's big piles and plates of vegetables with these tiny little bits of steak on the side. Pretty good.
For someone who wasn't really keen on coming to Australia, do you see yourself staying here now with your family and just further cementing yourself in the culinary landscape?
Yeah, look, it's been 10 years now. There's, I look at Europe now, and I'm glad I'm here, but I can see that when it springs back over there, it's going to be amazing. So never rule out going back. I don't think Kara's that thrilled about the idea, but I never say never. But there are times when I miss it. I miss the pub, like in the countryside with the cricket pitch and the picnic benches and that kind of thing. And so, never say never.
Your influence has been huge here, but you've really not been in the media that much compared to a lot of the professionals in the industry. What is it that you love about the food industry and being a chef? What gives you drive every day for that?
Oh, just happy people. Like, happy people who've got through a tough service, but looking out at a restaurant and seeing everybody enjoying themselves and the wine flowing and the beers coming through, and that table is just getting another round of cocktails. Like, I love that. I love the noise of a restaurant. The media and all that kind of stuff, it doesn't really interest me. I made myself a deal when I left Momofuku that I wasn't going to let these things like dictate my life, and I've stuck to it pretty well. Like, it's not what drives me. What drives me is making successful businesses and making people happy, whether that's the team that are coming on and moving onto the next job for them, within our business, like junior sous chefs moving to Mimi's as a sous chef, like things like that make me really happy. And just, helping people and
Well, Ben, we're very fortunate to have you on Deep in the Weeds today, and even more fortunate to have you and your influence in Australia. And I hope it does continue, even though you do miss the old dart. We've loved having you on Deep in the Weeds today, mate. Please keep in touch, and good luck with the vegetarian, vegan, no alcohol sort of life and how that might unfold. Yeah. Look forward to hearing more about that in the future.
Great. All right. Thanks for having me.
Awesome, mate.
Really enjoyed it. Thank you.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we share the stories of Australia's hospo community, suppliers and producers in search of hope during this pandemic. Special thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Follow us on Instagram at Deep in the Weeds Podcast, or email us at podcast@deepintheweeds.com.au. Stay safe and be well.